Attention. What you're about to see was once locked away from the world. Until now.
You stand in the cold spring rain of 1945, hands bound loosely behind your back, watching the transport trucks arrive. You are a prisoner now. The uniform you wore with pride is stained and torn. The war you believed would reshape the world has ended for you in a muddy field somewhere in France. Around you, other soldiers stand silent, exhausted, hollow-eyed. You don't speak. There's nothing left to say. You've heard rumors about what happens to captured German soldiers. Some whisper about camps in Siberia. Others mention firing squads in Polish forests. You don't know what to believe anymore. The only certainty is that everything you were told about the war was a carefully constructed lie. The American soldier guarding you is young, maybe 19. He chews gum and leans against his rifle like it's a walking stick. This casual posture unsettles you more than any threat could. You were taught that warriors are rigid, disciplined, forged through suffering. This boy looks like he just walked off a farm, yet his nation crushed yours. He offers you a cigarette. You take it, confused by the gesture. In your army, prisoners were barely given water. You inhale the smoke and taste something unfamiliar. It's smooth, manufactured with precision. Even their cigarettes feel industrial, mass-produced, endless. You begin to understand something terrifying. America didn't just defeat you with soldiers. They defeated you with systems you never saw. The truck rumbles to life and you climb aboard with dozens of others. Nobody knows the destination. Some prisoners speculate you're heading to England. Others think Canada. One man, a former officer, believes they'll ship you across the Atlantic to work in American mines. You say nothing. You're too tired to care. The truck convoy moves through French villages, where children throw stones and women spit. You don't blame them. Your army occupied this land for 4 years. You saw what happened here. You were part of it. Whether you pulled triggers or simply followed orders, the weight of that truth sits in your chest like a stone. After 3 days of processing camps, medical checks and interrogations, you board a ship. It's a Liberty ship, one of thousands America built during the war. You've heard stories about these vessels. Intelligence reports called them crude, hastily welded, structurally weak. Yet here it is, massive and solid, ferrying hundreds of prisoners across an ocean. You stand on deck and watch the European coastline disappear. You realize you may never see home again. The ocean stretches endlessly in every direction. You think about U-boats that once prowled these waters, hunting convoys. Now the sea is quiet. America's Navy owns it completely. You're crossing the Atlantic on an enemy ship, and not a single German submarine remains to challenge it. The voyage takes 12 days. You're given 3 meals daily. The food is plain but abundant. Bread, canned meat, powdered eggs, coffee. You haven't eaten this consistently in 2 years. Other prisoners whisper in disbelief. One man, a veteran of Stalingrad, says he survived that frozen hell on quarter rations and soup made from boot leather. Now, as a prisoner, he eats better than he did as a soldier. You wonder what kind of nation can feed its enemies so well while still fighting a war on 2 fronts. The answer frightens you because it suggests resources beyond comprehension. You arrive in America on a grey morning. The ship docks in New York Harbor and you're ordered onto the deck to disembark. That's when you see it. The city rises before you like something from a fever dream. Buildings taller than cathedrals stretch into the sky. Endless rows of steel and glass and concrete. You've seen photographs of New York before, in propaganda papers that called it a decadent monument to Jewish capitalism. But photographs can't capture the scale. It's not one tall building. It's hundreds, thousands. The skyline seems infinite, each structure a declaration of wealth and power. You feel your stomach tighten. You fought for 5 years believing Germany was the industrial heart of the world. Now you understand you were a village blacksmith challenging a steel foundry. The other prisoners stare in silence. One man weeps quietly. Another laughs, a bitter sound that has nothing to do with joy. You hear someone mutter in German, "How were we supposed to win?" Nobody answers because there is no answer. You were told America was soft, divided, crippled by democracy and racial chaos. You were told their soldiers were cowards who would break under pressure. You were told their factories were inefficient and their people too comfortable to fight. Every single thing you were told was a lie. The city in front of you is the truth. This is the enemy you tried to destroy. This is the power you challenged. You feel a sickening sense of waste, of all those years and lives spent fighting a war that was lost before it began. The trucks take you inland. You pass through towns and highways that seem impossibly clean and organized. Cars everywhere, moving in neat lines, obeying signals. Civilians dressed in normal clothes, going about normal lives. Children playing in parks. Women shopping without fear. You realize the war never touched this place. Not once. While your cities were bombed into rubble, while your factories were targeted night and day, while your civilians starved in basements, America remained untouched. The industrial heartland you're now entering never saw a single enemy bomb. You've been fighting from a burning house while your opponent stood in a fortress. They bring you to a camp in Pennsylvania. It's clean, organized, surrounded by fences but not brutal. You're assigned a barracks, given a bunk, issued new clothes. The American guards are polite, distant, professional. They don't beat you. They don't scream. They simply process you like paperwork. You're a number now, a captured asset, part of a system. That night you lie in your bunk and listen to the sounds of America beyond the fence. Trucks on highways, train whistles in the distance, factory horns marking shift changes, the sounds of a nation that never stopped working. You think about Germany, where the factories are now silent, buried under rubble, their workers dead or scattered. You think about the Ruhr Valley, once the pride of German industry, now a graveyard of twisted steel. The next morning they wake you at dawn. You expect forced labor, something brutal and punishing. Instead, you're told you'll be working in a factory, not as slave labor but as paid workers. The guards explain that under the Geneva Convention, prisoners can be employed, and Germany did the same with Allied POWs. You'll earn a small wage in camp scrip, enough to buy cigarettes, soap, paper. You're confused by this. Your country used prisoners as disposable labor, working them until they died. Here, they're offering payment. You don't understand the logic, but you're too tired to question it. They load you onto trucks and drive you into the countryside. The landscape is vast, open, green. Farmland stretches to the horizon, untouched by war. You see barns bigger than any you knew in Germany. Tractors moving through fields, machines doing the work of 50 men. One prisoner points and whispers, "Look at the waste." He's right. America is careless with its abundance. They leave equipment outside, unguarded. They let fruit rot on trees because there's too much to harvest. This casual wealth is more demoralizing than any punishment could be. You were taught to worship efficiency, to squeeze every drop of value from limited resources. America doesn't need to. They have more than they know what to do with. The truck stops at a factory complex. It's enormous, sprawling across acres of land. Smokestacks rise into the sky. Rail lines run directly into the facility. Trucks come and go in steady streams. You're led through a gate and into a processing building. The noise hits you first. The mechanical roar of 1,000 machines working in harmony. Then the smell, oil, metal, electricity, the scent of industry operating at full capacity. You're handed safety glasses, gloves, a helmet. An American foreman, an older man with grease-stained hands, explains your job through a translator. You'll be working on an assembly line. The task is simple, repetitive. You'll install bolts on engine casings. They don't trust you with complex work, but they need bodies to keep the line moving. You step onto the factory floor and your breath catches. It's impossible. You've worked in German factories. You've seen Krupp steelworks, Messerschmitt plants, the underground facilities built with slave labor. You thought you understood industrial production. You were wrong. This factory is bigger than anything you imagined. The assembly line stretches farther than you can see, disappearing into the distance. Components move on conveyor belts in perfect synchronization. Machines stamp, cut, weld, assemble with mechanical precision. And the speed, everything moves so fast. Parts arrive, get transformed, move on. No delays, no bottlenecks. Just endless flowing production. The foreman shows you to your station. You stand beside an American worker, a man in his 50s with thick forearms and a tired face. He nods at you, not friendly, but not hostile, just acknowledging your presence. The conveyor brings an engine casing. He demonstrates the process. Align the bolt. Pneumatic wrench. Tighten. 4 seconds. Next casing. You practice. It's simple, mindless work. But as you repeat the motion, you begin to understand something deeper. This isn't about skill. It's about system. Every worker does one small task perfectly, endlessly. The factory doesn't need craftsmen. It needs consistency. And it achieves that consistency through design, through machinery, through breaking complex work into simple steps that anyone can learn. During the lunch break, you sit with other prisoners in a designated area. You're given sandwiches, apples, thermoses of coffee. You eat in silence, still processing what you've seen. One prisoner, an engineer who designed aircraft components, speaks quietly. "Do you understand what this means?" he asks. "This factory produces more in one day than our best plants produced in a week. And this is just one factory. One. They have hundreds like this. Thousands, maybe." He pauses, staring at his hands. We never had a chance. It was mathematics. Pure mathematics. We couldn't outproduce them. We couldn't outsupply them. We were fighting arithmetic with courage, and arithmetic won. You return to the line. Hours pass. The work is monotonous but steady. You watch the American workers around you. They're not soldiers. They're ordinary people. Old men, women, even teenagers working part-time after school. You realize this factory isn't staffed by the young and strong. Those people are overseas fighting. This is the reserve workforce, the ones left behind, and they're still producing more than your best factories ever did. You think about German propaganda that mocked American workers as lazy and undisciplined. The line never stops. Components keep coming. The workers keep pace. There's no laziness here, just relentless mechanical efficiency. At the end of the shift, you're exhausted. Not from physical strain, but from mental weight. You return to the camp in silence. That night, lying in your bunk, you can't sleep. You keep seeing the factory floor, the endless line, the casual abundance. You think about the propaganda you believed. You were told Germany was the world's industrial leader. You were told your factories were the most advanced, your engineering the finest. You were told America was a nation of bankers and farmers, incapable of real production. Every word was a lie, or maybe not a lie. Maybe your leaders believed it too. Maybe they never saw this. Maybe they convinced themselves that their limited experience was universal truth. The days turn into weeks. You work the same shift, the same line, the same repetitive task. You learn more English. You observe more patterns. You notice how the factory operates. Shifts change smoothly. Supplies arrive exactly when needed. Machines break down and are repaired within hours. There's redundancy built into every system. If one line slows, another compensates. Nothing stops the flow. You compare this to German factories you knew, where a single broken machine could halt production for days because replacement parts didn't exist. Here, parts are stockpiled. Entire backup systems wait ready. It's not just production, it's resilience. One afternoon, during a break, you wander near a window overlooking the factory yard. You watch trucks being loaded with finished engines. Crate after crate, stacked and shipped. You count them idly. 30 engines on one truck. The truck drives away. Another takes its place. 30 more engines. You realize this happens every 15 minutes. Every hour, this factory ships enough engines to power 100 tanks. Every day, thousands. You multiply in your head and the numbers become absurd. This single factory is producing more engines than Germany's entire industrial output. And this isn't a military plant. This is a civilian tractor factory converted during the war. The military plants are larger. A guard approaches, an older American sergeant with grey in his hair. He sees you counting and smiles slightly. Impressive, isn't it? He says in rough German. You nod, unsure how to respond. He lights a cigarette and offers you one. You take it. My brother works in a shipyard in California, he continues. They build a Liberty ship every 4 days. 4 days, start to finish. Hull, engine, everything. 4 days. He pauses, letting the information settle. We're building them faster than your U-boats could sink them. That's why you lost the Atlantic. Not because your submarines weren't good. They were. But we built faster than you could destroy. You finish your cigarette in silence. The sergeant walks away, leaving you with that thought. You think about the U-boat crews, brave men hunting in wolf packs, sinking Allied ships, celebrating victories. You think about Admiral Dönitz, planning campaigns around tonnage sunk, calculating how many ships they needed to destroy to cripple Allied logistics. None of it mattered. For every ship sunk, America built 3 more. The equation was impossible from the start. You weren't fighting a nation. You were fighting a machine that multiplied resources faster than you could consume them. Weeks pass, and you're moved to a different section of the factory. This area produces agricultural equipment. Plows, harvesters, seeders. You're confused. We're at war, you say to the foreman through the translator. Why make farm equipment? The foreman looks at you like you've asked why humans need to breathe. Because people need to eat, he says simply. The war doesn't stop the harvest. You realize the depth of American capacity. They're not choosing between military production and civilian needs. They're doing both, simultaneously, without compromise. German factories converted entirely to war production. Civilian goods vanished. Here, the assembly lines run side by side. Tanks and tractors, bombers and cars. War and life, existing together. One evening, back at the camp, a prisoner receives a letter from home. It's been months in transit, passed through Red Cross channels. He reads it aloud to the barracks. His wife writes about the occupation. Soviet soldiers in the east, American soldiers in the west. The house damaged but standing. Food scarce but surviving. She asks when he'll come home. She doesn't know. Nobody knows. The war in Europe ended months ago, but prisoners remain. You're still needed, still working, still part of the machine. You wonder if you'll ever see Germany again, and what Germany will be when you do. The summer heat arrives, and the factory becomes stifling. The machines generate warmth, and the ventilation struggles to keep pace. You sweat through your clothes, drinking water constantly. The American workers complain but keep moving. You admire their endurance. These aren't soldiers trained for hardship. They're ordinary people choosing to work in brutal conditions because their nation asked them to. You think about German civilians who had no choice, who were conscripted and worked until they collapsed. Here, the workers can quit. They don't. That voluntary commitment is somehow more powerful than any order. One afternoon, a news bulletin plays over the factory loudspeakers. The war in the Pacific has ended. Japan has surrendered. You hear cheers from the American workers. Some cry, others embrace. The factory horn sounds, a long, triumphant blast. The foreman announces an early end to the shift. Everyone will go home to celebrate. You stand at your station uncertain. The war is over, completely. Germany fell in May, now Japan. The Axis powers are defeated. The world you knew is gone. You feel no joy, no relief, only emptiness. What was it all for? The prisoners are escorted back to the camp. That night, nobody sleeps. You talk quietly in German, processing the news. One man, a former tank commander, says what everyone is thinking. We fought the whole world and lost. How did we ever think we could win? Another prisoner, younger, barely 20, responds. We believed what they told us. We believed we were special, chosen, superior. We believed their lies because we wanted to. You all sit with that truth. The propaganda worked because you wanted it to. It felt good to believe you were part of something greater, something destined for victory. Confronting the reality now is like waking from a fever dream into a cold, grey morning. The factory continues its rhythm. You return to work day after day. The war is over, but production doesn't stop. The engines you're building now will power the reconstruction. Tractors for farming, trucks for transport, generators for electricity. America is already thinking beyond victory, planning the peace, building the future. You realize this is what separated them from you. Germany planned for conquest. America planned for afterwards. They thought about what comes next. You only thought about winning the battle in front of you. Months pass, and rumors spread through the camp. Some prisoners will be repatriated soon. Others will stay longer, depending on their records. You don't know which category you fall into. Your service was ordinary. You followed orders, fought battles, surrendered when resistance became pointless. You weren't a fanatic. You weren't a war criminal. You were just a soldier, one of millions, swept up in something you didn't fully understand. You wonder if that's enough to condemn you or save you. One morning, you're called to the camp office. An American officer sits behind a desk, your file open in front of him. He asks questions through a translator. Where did you serve? What unit? Were you involved in any atrocities? You answer honestly. You have nothing to hide and nothing to gain from lying. The officer makes notes, his face neutral. Finally, he says you'll be repatriated in the next transport group. 3 weeks, maybe 4. You'll go home. You feel no excitement. Home is rubble and occupation. Home is a defeated nation. Home is ashamed. Your final weeks in the factory feel strange. You know you're leaving, but the work continues. You install bolts, tighten casings, watch the line flow endlessly. The American worker beside you, the older man with tired eyes, shakes your hand on your last day. He says nothing. The gesture is enough. You weren't friends. You were co-workers, sharing space in a vast machine. You nod and walk away. The transport back to Europe is faster than the journey over. The ship is crowded with prisoners heading home. You stand on deck and watch America's coastline disappear. The towering cities, the endless factories, the casual abundance. You'll never see this place again. Part of you is grateful. Another part feels a strange sadness. You witness something here. Not just industrial power, but a different way of thinking. A system built on abundance rather than scarcity. A belief that there's enough for everyone if you organize correctly. Germany built its philosophy on the opposite. Not enough resources, not enough space, not enough for everyone. Fight for what you need. Take from others. That scarcity mindset led to war, and war led to ruin. You arrive in Germany in early 1946. The landscape is unrecognizable. Cities you knew are flattened. Factories are destroyed. Rail lines are twisted metal. Millions of people wander as refugees, searching for lost families, lost homes, lost futures. You're processed through a repatriation camp and given papers. You're free to go. Free to go where? You have no home to return to, no job, no prospects. You're a former soldier in a defeated nation. You're the enemy now, not just to the world, but to your own people who want to forget the war ever happened. You find work eventually, clearing rubble, rebuilding roads. The labor is hard and the pay is almost nothing, but it's work. You survive. Months pass. The occupation continues. American soldiers patrol the streets, not as conquerors but as administrators. They bring food, medicine, supplies. They're rebuilding the nation they defeated. You find this confusing. Why help the enemy? Why not leave Germany to rot? You ask an American soldier once, a young man distributing ration kits. He shrugs. Orders, he says. We're here to fix this place up. You press him. But why? He thinks for a moment. I guess because if we don't, someone worse will. Maybe the Soviets. Maybe chaos. Better we do it right. You think about that answer for a long time. It's pragmatic, not ideological. America isn't helping Germany out of kindness. They're doing it because a stable Europe serves their interests. But the result is the same. Food arrives. Infrastructure gets rebuilt. Schools reopen. Slowly, painfully, life returns. You compare this to how Germany treated the nations it conquered. Poland, France, the Soviet Union. You took everything and gave nothing. You exploited until nothing remained. Now, you're experiencing the opposite. The victor is investing in your recovery. It doesn't erase the past, but it offers a different future. Years later, you work in a rebuilt factory. It's a small facility producing machine parts for export. The equipment is American-made, imported through the Marshall Plan. The designs are modern, efficient, stripped of unnecessary complexity. You operate a press, shaping metal into components that will be shipped across Europe. The work is familiar. You learned these skills in Pennsylvania, on that assembly line, installing bolts in engine casings. The memory feels distant now, like something that happened to a different person. But the lessons remained. Efficiency, system, flow. You carried those ideas back with you, and now they're being rebuilt into Germany's industrial base. One afternoon, a younger worker asks you about the war. He was a child then, too young to remember the details. He wants to know what it was like. You hesitate. How do you explain? You could tell him about the battles, the fear, the cold. But that's not the real story. The real story is simpler and more terrible. We lost before we started, you say. We just didn't know it. We fought a nation that could outproduce us 10-1. We fought a system that thought bigger than we could imagine. We believed in will and courage and destiny. They believed in factories and logistics and mathematics. They were right. The young worker looks confused. But we were strong, he says. We conquered most of Europe. You nod. We were strong. But they were stronger. Not in spirit. In capacity. They had more of everything. More steel, more oil, more food, more people. More factories that could turn those resources into weapons faster than we could destroy them. That's what war is. It's not about bravery. It's about who can sustain violence longer. They could. We couldn't. You think about that factory in Pennsylvania often. It appears in your dreams sometimes. The endless line, the mechanical rhythm, the casual efficiency. It haunts you not because it was cruel, but because it was indifferent. You were just another worker, another body keeping the line moving. Your nationality, your past, your beliefs, none of it mattered. You were part of the machine producing, always producing. That's the power you witnessed. Not malice, not hatred, just capacity, the ability to organize resources and human effort into overwhelming force. Decades pass. Germany rebuilds. The Wirtschaftswunder, they call it. The economic miracle. Factories rise from the rubble. Cities are reconstructed. Democracy takes root. You grow old watching the nation transform. The young people don't remember the war. They know it from books, from films, from memorials. But they didn't live it. They don't carry the weight. You're grateful for that. Let the past stay buried. Let the future be clean. But you remember. You remember standing on that factory floor, watching American workers build engines. You remember the scale, the speed, the systematic precision. You remember learning that war isn't won by the bravest soldiers or the cleverest generals. It's won by the side that can produce more bullets, more tanks, more ships, more food. It's won in factories and farms and mines. It's won by people who never see combat but keep the machines running. That's the truth they don't teach. That's the secret hidden in those factories. War is mathematics dressed in uniforms. You die in 1983, an old man in a peaceful nation. Your children gather at your bedside. They ask if you have any final words. You think for a long time. What is there to say? You lived through the worst humanity could inflict on itself. You survived. You rebuilt, you witnessed the truth about power and learned the cost of lies. Finally, you speak. Your voice is weak but clear. Never believe someone who tells you war is glorious. War is production. War is logistics. War is the boring mechanical process of turning resources into death. And if you fight a nation that can produce more than you, you've already lost. Remember that. Remember what I saw. Your eyes close. The memories fade. The factory floor disappears. The machines fall silent. But the truth remains, preserved in these words, waiting for those willing to hear it. This is the story they didn't tell. This is the perspective they buried. This is the moment when you, a soldier of the Axis, finally understood why you lost. Not because you lacked courage, not because your soldiers weren't skilled, but because you challenged a power built on abundance while you fought from scarcity. You brought ideology to a mathematical equation, and mathematics won. The lesson is simple. Observe before you act. Understand the full capacity of your opponent before committing to conflict. Don't believe comfortable lies about your own superiority. Don't assume others are weak because they're different. Don't start wars you can't sustain. These truths seem obvious now, in the calm of history. But in the moment, clouded by propaganda and national pride, you couldn't see them. You saw what you wanted to see. You believed what you wanted to believe. And when reality revealed itself in that Pennsylvania factory, it was too late. The war was lost. The future was decided. All that remained was survival. This is the secret that was declassified when you walked onto that factory floor. This is the truth hidden in assembly lines and conveyor belts and pneumatic wrenches. This is the story of the day you finally understood what America was. Not a nation of cowboys and gangsters, not a divided democracy on the edge of collapse, but an industrial titan, organized and efficient, capable of producing victory through sheer systematic capacity. You witnessed it, you lived it, and now, decades later, the story can finally be told. Subscribe for more hidden woo stories.